Welcome to the Hockey Writers Maple Leafs Lounge, a weekly show from our Toronto Maple Leafs writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, prospects, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the blue and white. Come on in and pull up a chair. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge.
Hello and welcome back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I am your host, Peter Baracchini. As always, I am joined by my Maple Leaf writers and colleagues over at the Hockey Writers, Alex Hobson and Shane Seney. Alex, how are you doing? I know the Leafs were recording before the game, the Maple Leafs against the New York Islanders. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm happy to be back. I've missed a couple weeks in a row for obviously reasons outside of hockey writing, but I'm excited to be back, and it's coming at a good time. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about. It's a bit of a sad day with my poor Cats getting eliminated by the Chiefs over the weekend, but this is not an NFL show, so we're not going to focus on that. Overall, I'd say I'm doing all right.
You could be a Buffalo Bills fan, so there's that.
True.
Yeah. Shane, how you doing, man?
Great. I'm great. Unfortunately, like Alex, my Cowboys didn't do much on the weekend either, but the Leafs, they didn't do much Saturday night either. Unfortunately, they got a point out of it, but no, happy to have the threesome of fellas back here and to get things rolling. So off we go.
Absolutely. Once again, I cannot relate because my New England Patriots did not make the playoffs, and let's hope that the Maple Leafs rebound against the New York Islanders. Again, results to be determined, because once this is posted, the results, we will know if they win, loss, overtime win, overtime loss, whatever. Too many variables. But let's get on to the show. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Hockeypedia over at the Hockey Writers. For anything history, stats, rosters, general overviews of your favorite NHL teams, we have it all over at the Hockey Writers document page. Be sure to check that out for your favorite NHL team or all 32 NHL teams if you want to get up-to-date stats and information right away. Jumping into our first topic for tonight's episode, there was a lot of talk about Auston Matthews not being well. You know, he did have an injury, sat out against the Detroit Red Wings. He sat out another game, or he sat out one game, sat out another game for the Detroit Red Wings. So he was ready to go against the Boston Bruins, was also dealing with an illness. So a bit of everything with a mystery injury. Team was also going through the flu spell right then and there with dealing with that bug. But overall, Matthews has been starting to heat up. 7 goals in his last 9 games. 12 points overall. Alex, I'm going to start off with you. Is this a sign that, you know, especially with the game against the Florida Panthers, where he started to mount that comeback with that, buzzer beater in the second period, his 2 goals against the Winnipeg Jets, is this a sign that we're starting to see Matthews turn the page and get on that heater like he did last season around this time?
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't really been paying attention to the kind of ups and downs, quote unquote, of Matthew's season, just because I think early on I accepted that 60 goal season last year was I won't say a once in a career thing, but it was one of those things where, you know, it's, you know, to expect him to do that every year. I don't know. I just wasn't, I didn't have my expectations that high. So just the fact that he's been hovering around a point per game, and even if his goal scoring intake has been down, overall, I think he's still been producing enough to the point where I haven't really been worrying about his game at all this year. However, having said that, it is nice to see that he's starting to heat up a little bit more. I think it's nice to see his shot starting to come around, and you know, he did miss a couple of those games to heal a little bit, so you have to imagine he's feeling a little better in his body right now, and yeah, I hope he can keep it up. You know, he's already been having a great season. I think if he can multiply his production and start bringing more of it, and maybe something a little closer to what we had or what we saw last year, then it can only work in the Leafs' favor. So I'm excited to see if he can pick this up and sort of go on a little run here and keep the momentum.
Shane, Matthews is currently 15th overall in goals with 24, behind Kirill Kaprizov, Cole Caulfield, who Matthews maybe overtake because Caulfield has been sidelined with an injury and shut down for the season. Brayden Point, Timo Meier, and Leon Draisaitl. 4 goals separating him and Draisaitl to get back into the top 10. Based on what we've seen so far with the goal scoring, the playmaking, the overall two-way game, do you still see not just a 40-goal season, but a 50-goal season possible for Matthews if he's able to get on that streak like he did last season?
Yeah, I think 50 is within reach. He's not that far off his pace from last year, and considering, how bad it's been at times as far as not scoring goals, that's kind of impressive. So to me, as long as his complete game is still evolving, like we got to remind ourselves how he's still pretty young. So as long as his 200-foot game is still evolving and he's finding ways to chip in and help the team win, I know he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't care if it's 50, 60, or 82. So I'm happy to see that he's getting back to what looks like close to full strength. Honestly, we're not supposed to speculate on what exactly it is, but to me, it looks like his left wrist, like his bottom hand, just by the way he's trying to win draws and stick battles and all those things. It's just kind of sticking out to me, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I've never been told otherwise. So for me, it's good to see him back. I think, you know what, he's probably going to stick on this run for the next little while. So hopefully the All-Star break doesn't slow things down for him.
Shane, I'm glad that you brought up the fact that he doesn't care about setting these individual records anymore. And he's just focused on winning, because I think that also plays into the reason why I haven't really noticed per se when Matthews goes a couple of games without a goal, or when it's like, oh, he had 10 less goals on this day than he did this time last season. It's like, you know what? The Leafs are finding a way to win games, and Matthews' name's appearing on the score sheet. I really don't see anything to worry about. So I'm glad you brought that up, because Matthews is clearly not really focused on setting those individual records. It's not as big a deal as it was last year. And I think a lot of people can echo that.
I would also say that maybe he's won the award back-to-back for most goals. Maybe let somebody else have some fun. Let Connor McDavid have the moment in the sun kind of thing. But in all seriousness, yeah, I agree with you both how he's not so focused on trying to top his goals from last season. We have heard him say that he's focused on winning. Like, he's got individual accolades with the goal scoring, MVP title, you name it. Now it's more the important hardware, the Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe trophy for playoff MVP, what have you. And I honestly think that maybe not necessarily he's dialed down his play, because we still have seen that competitive edge, but I want to know if he's saving some of that energy for when it matters once again. We saw last year in the playoffs how he rose to the occasion once again. Hopefully this time around, no matter who the opponent is, whether it's going to be Boston or Tampa, most likely we are all penciling in Tampa Bay at this point. Matthews could get on another roll and be a factor once again right from the very start. So he's fresh for the games 1, 2, and 3. No matter who has home ice advantage, Matthews is going to be firing on all cylinders. And to me, I think that's going to be important. Yeah, he's great with his goal scoring right now, kind of average, but still a lethal shooter. Underrated passer, as we're seeing right now, as he's distributing the puck a little bit more. But if he's going to have that overall two-way, well-rounded, complete game in the playoffs, plus that additional goal scoring power, I think it's going to be huge for him and the team, no matter what. Moving on to our second topic. Obviously, we've talked about goaltending from the beginning of the season on the show till a few weeks ago, whether we thought that Samsonov and Murray were able to bounce back. We saw Matt Murray have a very, very off game with his glove hand, especially against the Florida Panthers. Ilya Samsonov comes in relief, manages to stop the bleeding, and the Toronto Maple Leafs get the win. Thanks to game winner, or game tying and game winner by William Nylander, but also Ilya Samsonov stopping the bleeding with, I believe, 11 saves overall in that game since coming in relief for Matt Murray. Now he's been playing. He's now going to be getting the start in his third straight game against the New York Islanders. Shane, is this a sign where maybe, the fact that he's getting more time in net or more strings of starts as a result of Murray's poor play, that maybe he could be getting that edge as a starting goaltender?
Right now, he's got it for sure. Yeah, he does. Which is great, because you want this internal competition and you want it to really play itself out. You don't want the coach trying to figure out who's starting in that game 1 or game 2 or game 3 of the playoffs. You want that decided ASAP. So I looked back at Murray's numbers too, and like, he hasn't really had a stretch where he's put 4 or 5 solid games together. So I'm not really surprised to see Samsonov getting some run here. He's been unreal at home, has been heavily documented this year, but he's going to have to figure it on the road if he really want to take the net. So to me, heading in against Long Island, probably a low scoring game. It might be low shots too. So you want to just see how he kind of holds his composure against them. But I'm happy to see it. And honestly, if he's going to take the bull by the horns and go off with it, then great. We got a starter for game one, and there's no questions asked. So it'll be fun to see how it all plays out.
Alex, this season, Samsonov has 933 save percentage at 5-on-5. And according to Natural Stat Trick, this is among goaltenders. I typed in a large sample size of 500 minutes played and high danger save percentage. He is tops in the league at 908. What do you make of this stretch for him right now? And is this going to be something that he's just going to take with it, run with it, and feel more motivated to try and create that separation between him and Murray? Because Murray has struggled a lot more than Samsonov, especially since the calendar flipped over to 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I said a couple days ago, and I still think this to this day. I don't support, or I do support the Leafs continuing to move in sort of a tandem formation, because up until at least a couple games ago, and right now, like we've been talking about, Samsonov has earned these couple starts in a row, but until a couple games ago, I didn't really think that Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov had really outplayed each other. Like, I don't think one guy really played better than the other. I think they both had their inconsistencies, both had their highs and lows. And having said that, I do still think that Keefe was right to give the net to Samsonov in this game, because, like you said, he came in and stood super tall when they needed him to against Florida. He comes back and he has that big start against the Jets, obviously. And then that game against Montreal, I mean, I didn't catch it, to be completely honest, but by all accounts, everything I heard, the Leafs sort of took their foot off the gas at one point in that game. It doesn't really, 3-2 loss. I don't really blame Samsonov for that game. I think he did enough to keep the Leafs in the game. So I'm glad that Sheldon went back to Samsonov again here. And like we've been saying, I think he's still undefeated at home. So I'm going to be interesting to see if he can continue that streak. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can actually make a run out of this, the first proper run of the season, because so far we haven't really seen either goalie start more than 2 or 3 really good games in a row. So.
And even then, it's always been a run of 2 or 3 games where we see 2 for Murray, 2 for Samsonov, and then it goes back and forth between the two. Now we're starting to see what Samsonov can do when he gets more times, more minutes, more opportunities, and more important games too, because this stretch coming up, it's going to be a very tough one. So if he does well against the New York Islanders, after this, the Maple Leafs do end up playing the New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators, Washington Capitals. Rangers, we know how much of a goaltending battle that is going to be because of Igor Shesterkin. Ottawa, although they are closer towards the end of the bottom of the standings, we know the Maple Leafs and how well they play against teams towards the bottom of the standings. Sarcasm right there. And as well as the Washington Capitals, and Darcy Kemper has come back and he's looking to be in top form, and there's question marks in that game. So these are very important games coming up. And if he feels that Ilya Samsonov is going to be the deciding factor in that game over Matt Murray, then so be it. But then again, back-to-backs may come into effect. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. Not the case, because none of them are back-to-backs. But I do want to point out one quote that Sheldon Keefe said, and it encompasses everything that both Shane, you said, and Alex said. The door opened for him here in terms of coming in relief, and he's done a really good job. He deserved better the other night, so I want to get him right back again. And that's from Mark Masters, TSN's very own Masters Nation. That just shows that Keith has faith in Samsonov at this point. And it's not to say that he didn't have faith in Murray before. It's just that maybe he's just in his own head a little bit. Maybe get him relaxed, watch the games a little bit, and then maybe once he puts in the work, kind of like Samsonov has previously before, where he did have his moments, he battled back in practice, put in the work. Samsonov came back and now he's looking sharp. Maybe the same thing can happen for Murray. Maybe this was Samsonov's stretch like it was during end of December, beginning of January as well. So who knows what's going to happen, but I do agree that if you start to give one of these goalies more like a 4 or 5 game trial, then you want to get to see and a sense of where they're going to be. Because if Samsonov's continuing to do well, and maybe you do the same thing for Murray and he doesn't, then maybe you have an easier decision on your hands if you're getting results with Samsonov rather than Matt Murray.
Just quickly too, Peter, is the fact he ideally moving forward, like thinking long term, Samsonov's the guy. Like he's younger, he's cheaper. They can sign him to a long-term extension at under whatever Murray's making. He'd probably come in around 3.5, 4. So, I mean, for them, it's like they're probably loving what they're seeing. Of course, they want both guys to be as good as possible. But to me, if they had their choice on one or the other, it would probably be Samsonov.
In terms of a contract extension, I would agree. And I think Matt Murray is here just to try and not necessarily stop the bleeding, but give them that balance. Because I think that was the main thing that they were missing last year, where you only had one goaltender trying to do the heavy workload. And then we saw what happened. Now that you have two capable starters, you have those options going for you. And I think that's what Keefe wanted at this point. Moving on to our third topic of the night. I'm pretty sure you guys saw the fight with Timo Meier between him and Brandon Carlo previously. And waking up to that, I see Leafs Nation in a buzz saying that, you know what, Dubas, do whatever you got to do to get Timo Meier on this team, especially if you're going to play the Boston Bruins, because, you know, Meier got in a couple of good licks. So he shows he's able to stand up for himself, but he can score. He's a top 6 winger, top line player for the San Jose Sharks. Shane, you've said you recently came out about a blockbuster deal with the Leafs and Sharks and getting Timo Meier. Alex, you've written in November about an early, price based on Frank Saravelli's price on Timo Meier. I've said on here how much I think Timo Meier should be a trade target for the Maple Leafs. Are we onto something here, Shane, or is it just, a happy coincidence? Because the way that Timo Meier is playing right now, he could be a really great fit on the Maple Leafs.
It just comes down to, like you said, the fit. He's like perfect to be plugged and played into that second line left wing, and would help out balance both power plays. He'd bring the type of player they need. It's just like, what are they going to pay him moving forward? And what does San Jose want and what everybody else is offering? Like, you just don't know. But obviously we think he's going to be one of the most sought off trade targets out there. San Jose is completely committed to the rebuild. So and with his comments after the game, you could tell he knows he's getting traded. The writing's on the wall. So if the Leafs can somehow manage to outbid some other players, then great. But it sounds like they could be looking at multiple trades as opposed to just one big name or what have you. So it's hard to say at this point, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, is he would be a great fit with Marner and Tavares, or Tavares and Nylander, and however they want to make it work. So excited to see how it all plays out.
Alex, I'm going to read off a quick stat or a few quick stats here on Timo Meier this season at 5-on-5, 55.12 scoring shot attempts, Corsi for percentage. He has a 57.02 scoring chances for percentage and a 63.02 high danger chances for percentage, as well as a high danger goals for 58.06. Impressive numbers for a guy who's on, a bottom feeding team like the San Jose Sharks, and they're going obviously into a rebuild mode right now. Obviously, when you wrote your piece, the price that Saravalli mentioned was around the same asking price that Ottawa paid up for Alex DeBrincat. Is something like that still possible, or do you think that Meier may have upped his trade value as a result of his hot play and underlying numbers this season?
Well, if Mike Greer is smart, then he's going to up the price, and he's going to get all those Eastern teams and everybody looking to upgrade it with the top 6 forward into a bidding war. Because the fact of the matter is, Timo Meier carries a lot of value. I mean, when you look at the type of player he is, you're essentially getting the same offensive production that you get from Nylander, plus a guy that's leading his team in hits and isn't afraid to drop the gloves every now and then. So, he just checks off every single box when it comes to players or types of players that the Leafs want in their top 6 and the types of skill set the Leafs want in their top 6. I can't lie and say I wouldn't be wary about trading Knies or trading Fraser Minson, or honestly, really only those two pieces. I think anyone else in the organization, including first rounders, I'd be totally okay with parting. But those two players make me a little worried. But put it this way, I would much rather the Leafs move someone like Matthew Knies or Fraser Minton for Timo Meier and get him to an extension than sit back and watch someone like Boston trade for him. I think at this stage, you know, Boston's going to be in the thick of it. Like they're going to want to capitalize on this season that they're having. Tampa Bay's not going to want to end their story or their Cinderella story after last season. So they're going to want to make a big move. We saw they're not afraid to part with assets that they have. So it's going to be tough. And, you know, as long as the Leafs address their needs, I won't be heartbroken if the Leafs don't end up with Meier. But if I'm Dubas, I'm doing whatever I can to get him out of San Jose. And just as a side note, I got to feel bad for Sharks fans. I remember Timo Meier when he was drafted, and it was like right around the time that was supposed to be the start of the Sharks rebuild. Here we are 8 years later, and we're talking about the Sharks trading him because they're rebuilding. It's just got to feel bad for the fans.
One thing too is because of his contract, like he's due a $10 million qualifying offer next year. He's not going to get that because somebody's going to sign him to an extension before that. So to me, that's why his price actually might come down a little bit. It's just the fact teams have to negotiate a long-term extension with him. And it does sound like the Sharks are going to permit teams to do that. So everyone can thank Matthew Tkachuk for starting the old sign and trades.
And people, you know, I think some people could be wary about wanting to ink him to that extension. But like I said, I mean, if you're getting that kind of production offensively, along with the physicality, I am more than comfortable clearing up the cap space to pay him whatever he'd be making, and whether it's in the $8 or $9 million range. And you know what, for anyone that's going to be like, oh, how are the Leafs going to have the cap room for that? It's like, that's the reason Brandon Pridham has his job. That is his job to figure out. I will sit back and judge it once he does it.
That is why he gets paid the big bucks. And I agree with both of you. I do think that at some point, maybe the price may be a little bit lower, because if teams are going to do that sign and trade chain, that is possible. But then again, Mike Ray want premium value for this. And even though the Maple Leafs has said that maybe, or it's been reported by LA Freeman that Matthew Knies is probably the one untouchable prospect within the system, I think if you need to move on from a Fraser Minton, if you even need to move on from a Topi Niemela, who is a right-handed shot and they are a rare commodity, I think that adds a little bit more value to a possible Timo Meier trade, because you could look to add some more defense, especially for the San Jose Sharks system, improve their depth a little bit more. I know they got some like really great names in Thomas Bordeleau, Tristan Robbins up front. I think maybe if you address defense, maybe you try to look at Topi Niemela as opposed to Matthew Knies, because they're still pretty forward heavy. Even William Eklund, he's still a name within their system playing in the AHL right now. So I think if you do need to move a key asset or a key prospect in this, even if it does mean moving Matthew Knies, great, because at the same time, it's tough to see him go, but at the same time, you are getting value. And if you're able to sign him to that contract extension, it'll be well worth it, because it's not going for just a rental price. You're paying a future asset for someone that's still capable of putting up big numbers and being an impact player on a team that's looking to fill out on that left-hand side, especially in that second line role.
A quick one in regards to cap hit. So one way to clear it out for next year is just trade TJ Brody in the offseason. And then there's an easy way to subsidize some of the money you're going to need for Meier. And of course, you're going to have to replace Brody's minutes, but I feel like that's something that could potentially happen.
And even if you even move on from Jake Muzzin's contract, I know he's probably, it also depends this season what's going to happen with Muzzin. I haven't heard we haven't heard anything yet, but maybe if he's going to be remaining on LTIR, there's still that remaining cap space that could be of significant value to this team no matter what. We've reached the halfway portion of this show. I know I made that mistake previously before, and I caught myself this time. There we go.
There you go.
So this show is brought to you by Sports Fan Side Hustle, a new digital course that teaches passionate sports fans how to make a lucrative side income off of their love of the game. Get off the sidelines and into the game with a course that will teach you more than 14 different and easy to start methods any sports fans, even ones with little to no experience in writing, podcasting, video production, collectibles, or marketing, can use to make a steady part-time or full-time income. All you need is the internet, a computer, a passion for sports, and a few hours a week. Go to sportssidehustle.com to get the absolutely free startup guide, that will explain 4 keys to unlocking this income opportunity. Again, that's sportssidehustle.com, and get started today. Kicking off the second half of the show, there's been some news recently, especially within the last 24 hours, regarding Pontus Holmberg and Dryden Hunt. Dryden Hunt, who the Maple Leafs acquired for Dennis Malkin, was put on waivers for the purpose of loaning him to the Toronto Marlies. And it was only a matter of time. I know a lot of fans in Leafs Nation started to freak out with some, trade wins, rumors, what have you, with Pontus Holmberg being sent down to the Toronto Marlies, but he's getting called back up. Alex, obviously, it was only a matter of time before Pontus Holmberg came back into this lineup. What does this say about the Maple Leafs depth? And is it just showing that maybe they have more value over Holmberg at this point, or even Bobby McMann?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me happy to see, as much as it kind of sucked to see Dryden Hunt go on waivers. And can I just say right now, absolutely shocking that he didn't get claimed.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the first Leafs player since maybe Jason Spezza threatened to retire if they didn't go on waivers. If someone claimed him on waivers. Maybe that was the last time that someone actually successfully passed through waivers, or I guess Simmons too. But yeah, it's I'm glad that, as much as it sucked to see him go on waivers, I'm glad that he didn't get claimed, because I think, he hasn't had a phenomenal start with the Leafs, but I think he's done his job. He's provided energy on the fourth line. He scored a goal a couple nights ago against his former team, Florida Panthers. So that was big. Excuse me. But I like that. The thing that I like about them putting Hunt on waivers is the fact that it shows that they believe that Bobby McMann and Pontus Holmberg have both earned a spot on the team as of right now. And I think that until proven otherwise, Bobby McMann looks awesome on the third line, even though he doesn't have a goal yet. I think his size and speed combo down there has made him a hard player to play against. Same thing with Pontus Holmberg. I mean, we've talked about him enough. So yeah, it's great to see that those guys are going to be back. And I hope that they're on the team for the rest of the year, because they deserve it at this point.
Shane, what do you think about the transaction that unfolded? And can we see maybe Dryden Hunt return at some point into the lineup, because he has that, intensity, ability to get on the forecheck, the physical mentality for later down the line when the grind gets a little bit more tougher and more physical?
Yeah, one way I see him coming back is if somebody like Zach Aston Reese got hurt and they needed to insert that type of player back in the lineup. I think those two play a very similar game. So I was kind of surprised to see them both playing together for even this long, to be honest. But injuries and otherwise always has influence on that. But when it comes to Holmberg, I'm happy to see him back in the lineup. That's for sure. He's really come on strong. I think he's a player that a lot of teams might ask about when it comes to trade deadline, and he might be a player that actually keeps Matthew Knies in Toronto, because if you go with a package around Holmberg and like Niemela or in a first rounder, maybe that takes the attention away from Knies. But in regards to Hunt, he'll be back. He's he plays with a chip on his shoulder. He skates hard, and I think he had 1 goal in the 9 games he played. So he's not brought in to do that. As long as he's finishing his check and standing up for his teammates, then he'll have a spot on this roster.
Yeah, and once again, I think it says a lot about the depth, because you do have a smart two-way center that has been just absolutely lights out in Pontus Holmberg. We've seen the work ethic that Bobby McMann has had to this point. And even so, I remember, I think it was the game against the Winnipeg Jets where he creates a turnover. He's making a diving play to give it to Pierre Engvall, and Pierre Engvall gets it for a shot on net. I think it hits the post. I can't remember what game that was, but I do remember it was McMann with the diving play to Engvall, and that was absolutely a great work ethic on his part. And even Dryden Hunt too. I was amazed when they acquired him, when they inserted him into the lineup. I really liked his intensity. Obviously, I understand why you didn't want to have the same type of player in Zach Aston Reese and Hunt on the same line, but then again, when you get down to the playoffs and you need your fourth line to be aggressive, quick, and in your face, both of those players had that ability. They're not slow like they were with Kyle Clifford and even Wayne Simmons last season when they were on the wings for Jason Spezza. These guys have speed and they have the skating ability to finish their checks and create, timely turnovers and regain more zone time. So yeah, I think it needed to be done because I think Holmberg and McMann are showing they have a little bit more value, but it does hurt to see Hunt get sent down because of the impact that he had in such a short amount of time. Moving into our final segment, it's going to be a little fun one. It's going to be a little lighthearted with the rapid fire segment. I am going to start off with you, Alex. I think I disappointed Shane right there. Shane, did you want to go first?
No, I can play
No,
second.
Shane-
fiddle.
No.
Shane
Okay.
didn't want it. I'm not
Where
disappointed
you're
at
going
all.
with this? Gives me time to prepare my thoughts.
All right, there we go. So we've talked about him quite a bit on the show, Matthew Knies, in regards to keeping him, trading him, what have you. But earlier today, and this is breaking news, but not necessarily because it did happen minutes ago or an hour. I can't remember time. I can't tell time, actually. So that is on me. But 2 hours ago, it happened. From the Minnesota men's hockey team Twitter page, Matthew Knies has been the newest nominee for the Hobey Baker Award. Again, nominee, not finalist just yet because this is a voting process. But Alex, based on his season so far with the nominee, with how he scored 2 impressive goals last season, or not last season, last week, do you think that if the Maple Leafs miss out on a top 6 forward, Matthew Knies could be that potential player that when the season's over, sign his contract, get into the lineup, or even not in the top 6 role, get meaningful minutes on a third line?
Yeah, I could see that happening. Absolutely. I think it's important to temper your expectations for him because the NCAA to NHL transition is not always super seamless, but I think that he definitely has potential to thrive in a middle 6 role this year. I think you just got to be patient with him.
Shane, what do you think? Do you think that NHL is on his mind right now after being patient, being sent back? Or do you think do you see that NHL role with him? Or maybe the AHL is probably the better route?
Definitely not the AHL. It's either coming in NHL or nothing to me. He can just replace Pierre Engvall on that third line and move him down, and that would be great. But I would love to see him in the lineup. And I mean, if that's on the horizon, then I can certainly see, Dubas and company really focusing in on that, the defense core as opposed to adding another forward if he actually is going to be brought in this year.
We know you're a huge Pierre Engvall fan, so that is why you said that right then and there.
Somebody tell him to get his stick on the ice and he might score more goals.
No, I agree with both of you. I think that, given how he wanted to head back, work on his strengths, develop a little bit more, generate more speed with his skating, based on what I've seen this season, I think he's done just that. And I think the Maple Leafs are going to sign him. And I think I agree with you, Shane and Alex. NHL or nothing at this point. Again, like you said, we temper our expectations a little bit. We're not anointing him as a superstar or automatic top 6 fix right away, but he has shown promise in his development, and that's key. If he's able to do that, that is going to be the most important thing. And then we can take it from there about labeling him as a superstar. No, I'm just joking. Please don't take that seriously, but he will be an impact top 6 forward, no doubt, for the Maple Leafs if they decide to keep him as well. Second question, Shane, for you. Alex, coincidentally, maybe I should have switched it up, but Alex recently came out with an article about, the Maple Leafs reuniting Bruce Boudreau. If you haven't noticed, Bruce Boudreau was let go by the Vancouver Canucks. Very complicated situation, or very, the Canucks really didn't handle that situation very well. Let's just say that. But in your eyes, Shane, should the Maple Leafs bring on Bruce Boudreau onto their coaching staff as a consultant, advisor, management role? What do you think? Is there a place for him in the organization?
Why not? It would be a huge slap in the face to the Canucks if they just made a new position for him. But I think they should do it just based on how the Canucks treated him these last few weeks. And, they came after Elliot Friedman for his reporting on it and everything. So to me, special advisor to the coaching staff, you bring him in, let him talk over some game tape once in a while, give his 2 cents. As long as he gets a ring, if they end up winning, that's the main thing, because we all know how much he loves the Leafs. And like Alex said, maybe he is the secret weapon.
Alex, I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be, but what do you think? Yay or nay to Bruce Boudreau being on the Maple Leafs?
It's time to bring Bruce home. It's time to bring him home.
Bruce,
I was reminded of an interview that he did on TSN 1050 when I wrote that article today, where he revealed that his dad put a curse on the Leafs organization when they released him in 1983, just 40 years ago. He said they would never win a Stanley Cup until Bruce came back to the organization. So who knows? Who knows? Bring him back, see what happens. But for real, whether they win a cup with him or not, I think that he's a guy that, when are you going to lose bringing a voice like Bruce Boudreau onto the bench, especially if he's not going to be in a head coaching role? Even in that article that there was an article written about him in the Toronto Star, and he said, if I join the staff, and this is in 2020, he's like, if I join the staff, then I'm going to sit back and sit quiet. It's going to be Keefe's team. So you know what? If it's another voice to add to the team, I say, why not?
There's no harm in bringing in a guy with his kind of record and track record. Although he hasn't quite won a whole lot at the NHL level, he does have an impressive record as a coach. And if he's still able to offer up little tidbits and advice to Keefe and everyone else on the coaching staff, why not? And even if it's in like a managerial type role position kind of thing, I don't think he'll make that transition from the bench to the main front office. But at the same time, I do agree that he could be a voice within the system. And you know what, Kyle, if you're watching, hire Bruce so the curse can be lifted, and maybe Bruce can just say, hey, you know what, it's all forgiven, it's all good. But on a serious note, yeah, I think that, why not bring him in? It doesn't hurt to have an extra voice on the coaching staff, and maybe even if it's to offer advice on the power play, penalty kill, what you name it,
he could step in and take the job that Paul McLean had back in 2021. And I think even last year he was an advisor with the team. He's not with the team anymore, so might as well.
Just as important, and who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe this is just a time for him to take a step back, relax, evaluate everything after everything that's happened. Whether he gets a new job or not, whether it's the Leafs or elsewhere, going to be happy for him because the way that this whole thing was handled with the Canucks was just not fair at all. And we wish him the best no matter what. Once again, that is it for this episode of the Maple Leafs Lounge. Be sure to check out Hockeypedia, the hockey writers page, for history, stats, rosters, and a breakdown of every NHL team for your favorite team or all 32. Be sure to check that out, as well as sportsidehustle.com to earn a lucrative income on the side. Even if you don't have the experience of writing, podcasting, video production, you name it, this is still a great opportunity to earn some extra cash on the side. Once again, that's it for this episode. For Alex Hobson and Shane Seney, I'm Peter Baracchini, and we'll see you next time on the Maple Leafs Lounge.